The Citizen Report is a production of New Shannon Media. All content protected under copyright.
And welcome to the Citizen Report. I'm Jonathan Shannon, and thank you for joining me. As always, this newscast is real, in-depth, American. Thank you so much for joining me. My co-host, David Heller, is off, but I will just say on that note, David will be joining me in the not-too-distant future. Hopefully in the next day or so, we're going to be covering Hurricane Delta in the Gulf of Mexico. And it looks like it's going to have a serious impact on the Gulf Coast, particularly possibly Louisiana. So please tune in for that special broadcast when it does come out. Again, in the next day or two, we may also cover other things, but we will certainly get you caught up and fully aware of what's going on in the tropics. But in this broadcast, I've got a lot to talk about, and I'm just going to say right now, buckle up, because I don't know if I've ever covered this much information in a single broadcast. It's certainly intense when you think about all this information I'm about to divulge to you. So just a quick preview of what's coming up in this broadcast. I'm going to be covering the debates. I did say in a previous broadcast that I would kind of have a more comprehensive analysis of the debate between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. I will have that in just a moment. I think you're going to be very, very shocked at some of this information, or maybe not. We'll have to just wait and see. But also going to talk about Trump's COVID diagnosis and the circumstances surrounding that. Very interesting information, certainly suspicious on some of it as well. Also, I'm going to be talking about General Michael Flynn, and also having to do with some Trump just declassed some critical documents, and I will get you some information on that as well. So if I trip over myself a little bit in this broadcast, I apologize in advance. This is a lot of information to divulge here, so I'm going to try to get it all in this broadcast, and I do appreciate you watching as always. So on that note, let's get into the debate a little bit, because again, this was just it was just fireworks upon fireworks. It was like it was just incredible. It was just incredible television. But some information on the debate, I think that a lot of people are not picking up on, and I'm trying to get you some information other people aren't really reporting on. It's hidden in plain sight. I've just went online in the last hour or so and did all this research, and I pulled up some information I think is very, very interesting. So first of all, just a couple of things. First of all, Biden, his persona, he was clearly on something, in my humble opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert in that, and I am not pronouncing that on him. But I am saying just my personal observation as just an average citizen, hence the Citizen Report. I personally would say that his demeanor, he looked like he was being spun up, if you will. Do you get what I'm saying? Because if you looked at the debate, if you watched the debate, towards the end of the debate, you notice he was kind of starting to go down a little bit. Still, though, kind of holding on to the coattails, if you will, of Trump towards the end. But obviously, Biden was kind of starting to lose his composure isn't the word, but perhaps his energy level was going down, obviously. So on that note, I wanted to read to you this tweet from President Donald Trump, and just very interesting what he pointed out here. And Real Donald Trump retweeted a tweet from the New York Times, and that tweet from the New York Times read, quote, "As the moderator of tonight's debate, Chris Wallace of Fox News repeatedly struggled to keep the proceedings coherent, reduced at times to pleading with the president to pause and allow his opponent to speak." Now, that's a pretty loaded statement right there. Obviously, very, very biased. And this is what Donald Trump at Real Donald Trump posted in that retweet, and obviously in response to that. Chris had a tough night. 2-on-1 was not surprising, but fun. But fun, I should say. Many important points made, like throwing Bernie, AOC +3, and the rest to the wolves. Radical left is dumping Sleepy Joe. Zero Democrat enthusiasm. Weak leadership. Now, I'm going to go over to this tweet from Charlie Kirk, and he kind of did a good job with basically summarizing the bias, I would say, that Chris Wallace had against Donald Trump. I mean, it was so flagrantly obvious, okay? So this is what Charlie Kirk at Charlie Kirk 11 had to say about the debate. Facts. Chris Wallace interrupted Donald Trump 76 times last night. 76. He only interrupted Joe Biden 15 times. Okay? Trump shouldn't have to debate two opponents at once, but he did, and he still won. And exactly, and this is me talking now, exactly, okay? Exactly. I agree. Trump still won. So I'm just going to say this again. Chris Wallace interrupted Donald Trump 76 times, okay? But only 15 times Joe Biden Chris Wallace only interrupted Joe Biden 15 times, okay? Now, and I'm basing this off of what Charlie Kirk said, but still, it's absolutely ridiculous. And if you ask me, I just think that, and I'll get to the COVID stuff here in just a few moments, but I gotta say this right now. I think it's kind of suspicious, the timing of everything, okay? Because I feel like Biden is looking for an excuse to get out of it. And the media is working overtime to try to spin it, to make it, to prop Biden up. And it's ridiculous. But now, Chris Wallace and frankly Biden picked on Trump for over this debunked theory that Trump supposedly refuses to condemn the KKK, white supremacy, what have you. Now, I pulled up a quote. This is courtesy of factcheck.org, which is shocking in of itself that they would even put this in their article. But according to them, this is what Trump said. I'm going back to August 14. This is a quote from August 14, 2017. All right? This is what Trump's had to say. He said, and this is Trump speaking here, and I quote, "As I said on Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place in America." Now, let me pause right there. I should have said this to clarify. This is in the having to do with the Charlottesville, Virginia stuff that happened in 2017. All right. Now that was part of his quote. Let me keep reading here. "And I have said many times before, no matter the color of our skin, we all live under the same laws, we all salute the same great flag, and we are all made by the same Almighty God. We must love each other, show affection for each other, and unite together in condemnation of hatred, bigotry, and violence. We must rediscover the bonds of love and loyalty that bring us together as Americans. Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs." Now, listen to this. "Including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans." And this is the last paragraph of his quote. "We are a nation founded on the truth that all of us are created equal. We are equal in the eyes of our Creator. We are equal under the law, and we are equal under our Constitution. Those who spread violence in the name of bigotry strike at the very core of America." So let's be clear here. Trump condemned, namely, the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups. Okay? Trump made that clear then. So why is the media dredging it up still? And why would Chris Wallace even ask that a question if he was objective, or if he was informed? At best, he's uninformed as to what he's talking about in asking Trump, but I think it was It was the concocted, debunked falsehood that Trump somehow refuses to condemn white supremacy. It's not true. And of course, I notice that they nitpick everything Trump says, and it's ridiculous. Because all you have to do is go back and read this. All you have to do is read this. And it says it in plain English. KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups. And he called them criminals and thugs. I mean, does that not pretty much sum it up? I mean, this is what the mainstream media is all about, folks. And if you still haven't figured that out, I honestly cannot help you. Because, and with all due respect, because I'm telling you, I'm showing you this information. I'm just saying. I mean, it cannot get any clearer than that. Now, a couple other things here. This is the quote. Now, this is the context here. This is what the exchange was between Chris Wallace, Trump, and Biden. Because, of course, Trump wasn't just debating Biden. He was debating Chris Wallace. And this is what Chris Wallace said. I'm going to read the exchange here. I've got the exchange right here. Wallace, are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups? Trump said, sure. Wallace, and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence and it got cut off in the print off, but these cities as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland. Trump said, sure, I'm prepared to do it, but I would say almost everything I see from the almost everything I see is from the okay, I'll tell you what, let me stop right there. Actually, let me keep reading down here. And Wallace said, then do it, sir. Biden said, do it, say it. Trump said, what do you want to call them? Give me a name. Wallace said, white supremacists and right-wing militias. And right after that, see, this is the thing. This is what the mainstream media is manipulating it. And this is why I'm taking time tonight to clarify this for anybody that's still not clear about this. Right after Wallace said white supremacists and right-wing militias, Biden cuts in and says Proud Boys. Okay? Because here's the thing. Proud Boys is not one of these organizations. It's a peaceful organization. It has nothing to do with racism and white supremacy. It's just ridiculous. In fact, there are black people, frankly, who are members of it. It's ridiculous for them to be lumped in. Trump says, Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. Okay? Now, there's more to this, and I didn't read the entirety of this exchange, partly because it got cut off in the print off. I do apologize, but my point is that they took that and manipulated as if to say Trump basically wasn't willing to condemn white supremacy. I had one of my Facebook friends, somebody that I was in the Boy Scouts with. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, okay? He literally came on Facebook and said something to the effect of that Trump refused to condemn white supremacy. I don't remember the exact quote, but I think it was something along those lines. And I said it then as I'm going to say now. Go back and look at what Trump actually said. And I just read it here tonight. That Trump called them criminals and thugs. KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups. Okay? I don't think I need to spend any more time on that. I think it's pretty self-evident that the mainstream media it's just got caught again trying to manipulate the narrative, and it's just ridiculous. Now, Charlie Kirk had this to say, and I think it's pretty well sums up. And I'll leave it. I'll kind of start to wind down this topic on this point. But Charlie Kirk at Charlie Kirk 11 said, Joe Biden refused to say he wouldn't pack the court, refused to condemn Antifa, refused to condemn BLM Inc., refused to endorse law and order, refused to tell the truth about Hunter Biden. Joe Biden was lying and on defense last night. Decisive victory by President Trump. Exactly. That's well said right there. Pretty sums it up right there. Now, a couple polls here. I'm going to get to Chris. I do have some things to mention about Chris Wallace. I'll get to that in a second. But I want to encourage you, if you're supporting Trump, I want to just take a second to encourage you, because you need to understand something. There's internal polling and there's polls for the mainstream media. The polls by the mainstream media, meaning the polls you most of the time see on the air, on television, is meant to shape a narrative. And usually the questions are asked in such a way to provoke a certain response. And it might be more generalized when the poll is released. So a lot of times the poll you see on TV is not actually, you know, the exact same as what the questions were. I'm not saying all of them are, but I'm saying sometimes they ask the questions in such a way to evoke a certain response. Okay? Now, despite all of that, this is polls, not internal polling. This is polls on the air. Okay? And both of these are courtesy of Charlie Kirk at Charlie Kirk 11. Kudos to him yet again. So this is what he said. Now, he's sourcing News Nation for this, at News Nation Now. And this is what Charlie Kirk said about this poll. A sample of 2,500 respondents show 60%, 60%, think Trump won. Just 30%, 30%, think Biden won. Only 10%, 10%, no clear winner. And of course, and again, that was a poll by or from News Nation Now. Okay. Now this is from Telemundo. Now, if you don't know about Telemundo, Telemundo is a Spanish language television network owned by NBC Universal. Okay, so obviously they're going to be to the left. I mean, anything that has anything to do with NBC is going to be to the left. It just is. Anything owned by NBC or NBC Universal is going to be to the left. You can just bank on that. Also, courtesy of Charlie Kirk, this is what he said. Telemundo poll. 66% believe Trump won tonight. This is huge. Retweet so the activist media can't ignore. So again, 66%, okay? 66% on Telemundo, their poll. 66% of respondents said Trump won, okay? Now, shifting gears here again, I'm gonna mention a couple other things here. You need to understand these debates are not just spontaneous. They're set up by something called the Commission on Presidential Debates. It was founded in 1987. This is what Wikipedia has to say about it. I'm only going to read a little bit of this. It says, quote, "The Commission on Presidential Debates, CPD, is a nonprofit corporation established in 1987 under the joint sponsorship of the Democratic and Republican political parties in the United States." Okay? Sounds kosher enough. Now let's go to this. Frankly, though, I can already say right now, I don't want either party involved in that. Frankly, it should be a completely neutral organization, devoid of political interference. And the fact that we even have a party involved, even though it's a supposedly, at least supposedly, jointly from the Democrat and Republican parties, I still think that's ridiculous. Okay? Now, going down to the section having to do with formation, and that's to say how the organization came about. Listen to this. This is very interesting. Quote, "After studying the election process in 1985, the Bipartisan National Commission on Elections recommended, quote, turning over the sponsorship of presidential debates to the two political parties," unquote. The CPD, that's the Commission on Presidential Debates, was established in 1987 by the chairman of the Democratic and Republican parties to take control of the presidential debates. The commission was staffed by members from the two parties and chaired by the heads of the Democratic and Republican parties, Paul G. Kirk and Frank Fahrenkopf. At a 1987 press conference announcing the commission's creation, Fahrenkopf said that the commission was not likely to include third-party candidates in debates, and Kirk said he personally believed they should be excluded from the debates. Now, let me say something about the third-party stuff. Personally, I think a lot of these third parties are deliberately done to siphon off critical votes. If you don't agree with me, that's your choice. But I'm telling you right now, with this, I forget his name, the guy that was running in the Libertarian Party in 2016, his name, I can put a face to it, but not a name. I don't know why. You also had I believe, the Green Party, right? So I think that a lot of times, and this isn't just presidential debates, I think this is the case on pretty much every level. I personally believe that a lot of these votes that go to them are done strategically to try to, like, let's say libertarians. Maybe you're more in line of a thinking of republicanism, but you decide to go for whatever reason with libertarians. Well, that vote you could have used for a Republican was instead basically a +1 vote in effect for the Democrats. By removing that vote that would have been for the Republicans, you instead gave it by proxy to the Democrats by giving it to the Libertarians, because that was one less vote the Republicans had against the Democrats. Do you see what I'm saying? And so on. I'm not saying that third parties are bad altogether, necessarily, but I do think a lot of them are done on purpose to siphon off critical votes. So unless we get to a point where we don't have to have a two-party system, we have to deal with what we've got now, okay? It's like, if you can't, it's like, for example, let's use a real life example. If you have an old car that you want or need to upgrade to a newer car, but you don't have the money yet, maybe you're saving for it. You keep driving that old car unless or until you get the money and you decide to go ahead and buy that newer car. That's kind of what we're dealing with in a different sense anyway, maybe, with, at least in some sense, with the parties, okay? That's what we got right now. So pick a side and stay with it, all right? Now, Trump had this to say. Now, we all know what Chris Wallace was like. I mean, he was a complete joke. And Donald Trump posted back on, well, actually, October 6th, so this was just a very recent tweet. Now, he was retweeting a post by Paul Sperry. Now, Paul Sperry is mentioned a lot on X22 Report, so I recommend that you go follow Paul Sperry. I'll need to make sure I'm subscribed or following Paul Sperry, but Paul Sperry is mentioned a lot on X22 Report, so I highly recommend that you make sure you're up on following Paul Sperry at Paul Sperry _. All right? And this is what Paul Sperry said. If at the next debates, moderators don't insist Biden flesh out his proposed policies in detail, finally providing voters specifics regarding his plan for a Medicare option for all and his $4 trillion in tax hikes and his plan to phase out fossil fuels, then you know the fix is in. See? You see what I'm saying? There, he's mentioning that this system is fixed. I just mentioned about the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is a deep state organization, okay? It's rigged. And Trump is not part of this deep state system. He's an outsider. Yes, he's a Republican. And Republicans actually stand for what's good. We are a constitutional republic, hence Republican, whereas the Democrats, democracy, meaning mob rule by a narrow majority, siphoning off your rights to the minority, that's a Democrat, or I should say democracy. When you have a democracy without being a truly purely working pure democracy where everyone is always voting on everything, then you have mob rule, because you have the few that are telling you what to do, instead of having a republic where we are under God, self-governing. Every one of us has inalienable rights, okay? Now, I got off on that, but in response to that tweet that Paul Sperry put out, Trump said Chris Wallace was a total joke. Protected Joe all night long. He's no Mike, and that's referencing Mike Wallace. I think pretty sure that's his dad. Now, I pulled up a couple things. Now, one other thing. Nora O'Donnell, who's the CBS Evening News anchor, and courtesy of WWL, that I found this tweet. It was embedded in their article that her tweet was mentioned. It says, exclusive. At CBS News has learned the Commission on Presidential Debates plans to issue strict new rules in the coming days that include cutting off a candidate's microphone if they violate the rules, per an informed source. More tonight at CBS Evening News. in this article down below, a little further down below, it says, they were mentioning a statement issued by Trump's campaign. Quote, they're only doing this because their guy got pummeled last night, Trump 2020 communications director Tim Murtaugh said. President Trump was the dominant force, and now Joe Biden is trying to work the refs. They shouldn't be moving the goalposts and changing the rules in the middle of the game. So keep that in mind. Now let me mention this, and I'm almost done talking about the debates. First of all, actually, let me read this to you. Let me show this to you first. Now, I found this. I saw this picture on online tonight. Now, this is Jeff Glor, who was at the time I don't know when this picture was taken, but for a time he was the CBS Evening News anchor. Then you have George Stephanopoulos, and it looks like there's someone there. I'm not sure who that is. And then there's Margaret Brennan, who I believe is the CBS Face the Nation, or as I like to call it, and as Mark Levin likes to call it, Deface the Nation. And then you have Chris Wallace right here. Okay, so that already tells you something. You've got a Democrat operative right here by the name of George Stephanopoulos. He worked in the Clinton administration. He's now chief news anchor at ABC News. Now that should tell you something. So again, on the other side of the table we have Chris Wallace, and then there's someone else beside him. I'm not sure who that is. And then next to that person, it looks like, is David Muir of ABC World News Tonight. Okay? Now, there's someone sitting here. Now, the sky's the limit on who this might be. My personal guess might be Nancy Pelosi. I don't know. It could be anybody. And I shouldn't say that it's Nancy Pelosi, because I just don't know. But I went to the Wikipedia page, okay, of Chris Wallace, okay? In his personal life section, notice this. It's very interesting. This is what it reads, in part. On October 11, 2006, the Washington Post reported that Wallace had been a registered Democrat for more than 2 decades. You cannot make this stuff up, folks. Wallace explained his party affiliation as pragmatism, saying that being a Democrat is the only feasible means of participating in the political process in heavily Democratic Washington, D.C. He maintained that he had voted for candidates from both major parties in the past. So this all starts to make sense when you look at this background information. Now, I've spent better part of half an hour talking about the debates, and I need to get moving here because I've got a lot more of information coming up. Now, let's switch gears here and talk about Trump, his COVID diagnosis, okay? Now, there is so many different ways to look at this. I mean, my head is almost spinning because when this happened, so many things were running through my mind. One of which was being, well, is this possibly a cover for something else? Was this maybe a ruse to get Trump out of the Washington, D.C. area for a period of time to try to, if there was a threat or maybe there was a situation otherwise, but I don't really know. It's starting to look to me that this may have been really what it appeared to be. But I stress, I don't know conclusively either way. Now, first of all, I'm not going to use the letter because, unfortunately, now Facebook won't even let me, basically any of its content is officially banned. YouTube censors it. It seems like YouTube still allows it to some extent, but it's obviously censored. Twitter is obviously very hostile to it. I'm pretty sure Twitter has an outright ban on it as well. But this is what we'll call the Patriot Intelligence Insider had to say back on September 16, 2016. Excuse me. September 16, 2020. Post number 4730. This is a picture of a Mickey Mouse clock. Notice the hands are pointed at the 10 and 2. Now, when did this all start? October 2nd. 10 October to the second day of the month. So that's very interesting. That was back in September. So, you know, you're welcome to interpret that how you wish, but I'm just putting it out there. Now, the circumstances leading up to Trump getting COVID was very, very odd, to say the least. In fact, it's just downright suspicious. Because basically what we have here is Trump, the Secret Service protects him like you wouldn't believe. I mean, that's their job. And they're spinning, the mainstream media is spinning this like you would not even believe right now. They're trying to say that Trump, they say it's his fault for getting COVID. It's completely nonsense. And we know it's complete nonsense. But I'm just saying. Now, again, there are so many different ways to look at this. I'm choosing to only pick basically one, other than to what I just showed. I'm basically going to pick one line of thinking right now for brevity purposes because I've got other things to get to. But for this broadcast, I do have something very interesting, and I'm going to give credit to X22 Report for he was the one that brought it up on his show, this particular tweet. Or at least I think it was this tweet. But anyways, this is a tweet from Patrick Hawley, at Hawley Reporter. And he was retweeting his own tweet. His earlier tweet read, quote, President Trump tested negative before the debate, but 11 cases in Cleveland are traced to the setup crew, and multiple people with Trump in the map room briefing tested positive. Let me say that again, or let me rephrase that. Basically, one of the rooms that Trump was in at this debate, behind the scenes, you had 11 cases that were traced back to the setup crew and multiple people that were with Trump in this building, okay? Now, if you ask me, I personally think the Democrats planted someone. Could be wrong, but I find it more than suspicious. You have the Biden, they were saying, we should not have another debate. And, and then all of a sudden we start seeing, first we saw Hope Hicks get COVID, and then we saw President Trump get COVID, his, First Lady, his wife getting COVID, and now it's spiraled down to like Kayleigh McEnany. You had Tom Tillis, the U.S. Senator from here in North Carolina, who's a Republican, I should say. Now, Patrick Hawley, that tweet that I just read to you moments ago, let me put it up for you here for a second. You can pause it and read it if you need to. Now, he retweeted his own tweet, as I'm saying. And this is what he said in this retweet. Quote, Cleveland Clinic itself said Trump had been tested and tested negative by his campaign prior to the debate. But 11 cases in Cleveland are traced to the debate setup crew. Yeah. Now, I think that let me say this. First of all, let me read this. This is courtesy of WOIO Television 19 News. In their article, they mention a quote from the city of Cleveland. And it says, the city of Cleveland also released a statement after the news involving President Trump surfaced. Quote, the city of Cleveland is aware of positive cases of COVID-19 following the September 29 presidential debate. In total, at this time, we are aware of 11 cases stemming from pre-debate planning and setup, with the majority of cases occurring among out-of-state residents. Let me say that again. With the majority of cases occurring among out-of-state residents. Who do you think that might be? Could be anybody. Was it a plant? Again, we don't know. Let me keep reading this quote. I'm almost done with this quote. At this time, though, that could change. No city residents appear to have contracted the virus as a result of this event. Now, let me say something. This is my personal reading into this, okay? As of this broadcast, I am not aware of a single Democrat who got COVID-19, stemming from this, I should say. and I mentioned Tom Tillis for a reason. Tom Tillis, the senator from here in North Carolina, is a Republican. He tested positive, I believe, he tested positive for COVID-19. You had all these people surrounding Trump allies basically, who got COVID-19. Yet not a single Democrat, remember, not Biden either, not anybody from the Democrat side that we know of, that I know of as of this broadcast, not a single Democrat got COVID-19. And before anybody out there tries to say, well, Trump wasn't wearing a mask, let me tell you something. Tom Tillis, I have heard it said, was wearing a mask. Now, I'm not saying he was at this thing. I'm just saying, obviously, he's been with Trump at other things. I'm just saying, Tom Tillis, who's worn a mask, according to other people's claims or other people's tests, someone else said he was wearing a mask. So why is it that someone can wear a mask and still get COVID if masks work, supposedly? Just asking. Now, I think that President Trump was absolutely brilliant in his response with COVID, because he basically he basically came forth and said, don't be scared of COVID, live your life, and I'm paraphrasing, live your life, don't be scared of COVID. Be careful, but don't be scared of COVID. And that's exactly right. And the thing is, the mainstream media, they have spun this like you wouldn't believe. And it's just absolutely sick and disgusting what the mainstream media has done. But President Trump managed to destroy their narrative. It's absolutely brilliant. It's beautiful. And also Trump, if you remember, while he was still at Walter Reed, he went in an SUV with Secret Service agents who were wearing PPE and other stuff, I guess. And Trump wore more of a generic, or not generic, but it looked like to me like a presidential mask or whatever you call it. It wasn't like a PPE sealant kind of deal. And the mainstream media are saying, Trump's going to give his Secret Service agents COVID. Oh, really? If that were the case, then, why, Trump was wearing a mask, the Secret Service agents were wearing a mask. But you're telling me that he's going to give them COVID? See, this is the thing. He's completely destroyed their narrative on masks, on mandated masks. Now, I personally would say, if you want to wear a mask, go ahead. But don't accost my rights and demand I wear one so you can feel better about yourself, with all due respect. Now, in keeping with that topic, Donald Trump posted a few hours ago, actually. He retweeted a tweet from Greg Jarrett back on October 3rd, and it said, quote, Pelosi, and he was paraphrasing, and Greg Jarrett was paraphrasing what Pelosi said. Trump's behavior was a brazen invitation for coronavirus infection. This is the utter, and this is me talking here, this is the utter hypocrisy of these complete morons like Pelosi. Now, this is what Donald J. Trump had to say in this retweet to Pelosi. Wear your mask in the beauty parlor, Nancy. Let me say that one more time. Wear your mask in the beauty parlor, Nancy. Because obviously that's referencing Pelosi being caught on camera not wearing a mask the entire time she was inside this hair salon that supposedly wasn't even supposed to be open, as I understand it, at that point in time. So these Democrats are absolutely hypocrites. They are. They're hypocrites. Now, Kellyanne McEnany, or I should say, actually no, Sean Conley, physician to the president, issued this basically a memorandum to or for Kayleigh McEnany, assistant to the president and White House press secretary. And this is, I want you to notice something. Let me read this. I release the following information with the permission of President Donald J. Trump. And let me clarify. Up near the top, it says October 3rd, 2020. So this was while Trump was still, this whole thing was still, I think Trump was still at Walter Reed at this point. Let me read down here. President Trump continues to do well, having made substantial progress since diagnosis. This evening, he completed his second dose of remdesivir without complication. He remains fever-free and off supplemental oxygen with a saturation level between 96 and 98% all day. He spent most of the afternoon conducting business and has been up and moving about the medical suite without difficulty. While not yet out of the woods, the team remains cautiously optimistic. The plan for tomorrow is to continue observation in between doses of remdesivir, closely monitoring his clinical status while fully supporting his conduct of presidential duties. Now, the reason I read this was because it mentions remdesivir. And we know that President Trump, separate to this, we know that President Trump has been on certain experimental drugs. Now, as Dr. Dave Janda clarified, and I think he did a brilliant job explaining all this, these doctors are bound by HIPAA law. They cannot say everything that's going on. But, and in fact, it kind of, it doesn't mention HIPAA, but obviously, the same principles in play here by it saying, I release the following information with the permission of President Donald J. Trump. It was only because of his permission did this information get put out there officially. Now, I would not be surprised, and this is me reading into all this, I would not be surprised if President Trump has been taking hydroxychloroquine. We'll see. I don't know, but I would not be surprised because anything that Trump does and saying about these experimental treatments and seeing that how Trump went into the hospital, he had a little bit of symptoms, and then he's gotten back out, and he at least visually looks recovered. So it just points out again, this virus is not nearly as much like the plague that the mainstream media tries to make it out to be. And in fact, Trump actually posted back on October 6th, and of course Twitter got their feelings hurt over this. In fact, on his tweet, there's a little notice that Twitter decided to put on there. And it says, this tweet violated the Twitter rules about spreading misleading and potentially harmful information related to COVID-19. However, Twitter has determined that it may be in the public's interest for the tweet to remain accessible. Oh, your day is coming, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of you. Your day is coming. So I'd get your panicked outright. You know what, actually, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all you big tech outfits, I would save a lot of that panic for when you're actually taken to court and your immunity is stripped away. Because right now you supposedly can hide behind immunity laws, like Section 230. I believe it's Section 230. Yeah, I wouldn't be panicking too much right now. I'd make sure to save a lot of that for when the real wave of the storm hits. Okay? Now, this is what Donald Trump said, and of course I read the notice that Twitter decided to add to it. And this is what Trump says. Listen here. Flu season is coming up. Many people Many people every year, sometimes over 100,000, and despite the vaccine, die from the flu. Are we going to close down our country? No. We have learned to live with it, just like we are learning to live with COVID. In most populations, far less lethal. So, I think Trump is sending a clear message that I think it's to imply that this is really not worse than the flu. Okay? I hope I don't get banned from saying it. And you need to be subscribed to my text alert so I can let you know when there's a new broadcast, or if we get censored, I can let you know. Because we don't know. I don't know, but there may come a point in time when YouTube decides to pull me down. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but we'll see. Now, Mark Taylor kind of puts this all together at Patton 6966. And he writes, POTUS, that's President of the United States, General Flynn, and anyone who has been mercilessly attacked by the kingdom of darkness, their enemies are the enemies of God. They will be made a public spectacle. They will be publicly humiliated for the entire world to see. The fear of the Lord shall fall upon them. Let me put this tweet up on screen here. Pause it if you need to. And he's basically saying, look, you Democrats, you deep staters who try to hurt President Trump, it's only going to come back to bite you. Because Trump is protected by God. I do believe that. Absolutely. So there's that. Now, I could keep going on. There is so many different rabbit holes I could go down with this. And hopefully you saw my previous broadcast where I broke down that particular clip of where Trump was in this. He was basically talking to the camera, and the camera was just ever so slightly bobbing ever so slightly up and down, maybe a little to the side, but mostly up and down. And it was like, it just didn't seem right. Something seemed a little off. It's like, could it have been something on Air Force One or on a ship? Or it could have just been in Walter Reed. We don't know. But I put the information out there. It's up to you to decide. If you haven't seen that, or if you want to see it again, go back to that broadcast from Saturday night. All right? Now, a couple things to mention about Flynn and the D-class stuff, all right? And just I'm just going to keep moving along here because it's just a lot of information here. I appreciate you sticking with me here. General Flynn posted on, and I thought this was good to mention, back on October 4, General Flynn at Jen Flynn tweeted this out. Stand strong, America. God bless the USA. # be not afraid. And he, down in the picture, it's a verse from Luke 8:17, and it says, "For nothing is concealed that won't be revealed, and nothing hidden that won't be made known and brought to light." Luke 8:17. So I thought that was an interesting verse because it obviously mentions about how obviously what's in secret will be brought to light, but what is not known will be made known, brought to light. But my point being is that earlier tonight, President Trump declassed certain documents, and I'm trying to find it right now. Okay, here we go. Trump put this out. It says, quote, "I have fully authorized the total declassification of any and all documents pertaining to the single greatest political crime in American history, the Russia hoax. Likewise, the Hillary Clinton email scandal. No redactions." So that was very, very interesting. Because again, the treason, and I do mean treason, literal treason by President Obama, is being brought to light right now. And that's what we're seeing right now. Mark Taylor, the same Mark Taylor I mentioned a moment ago, on at Patton6966 had this to say. What would happen, and this is on Twitter, what would happen if more than one prior president is arrested and charged with treason? Would everything they did be null and void? Could Supreme Court justices and judges they appointed be null and void? Could this be how the judicial system is reformed? That's a very interesting possibility. And it is. If Trump, or I should say, if Obama is charged and convicted of treason, what does that tell you? And also, and I'm going to go down, I'm just going to say this right now. If it ever is proven that Obama actually is not born in America, I'm just putting it out there, that would absolutely null and void his very presidency. Because in the Constitution, you must be a naturally born citizen. You must be born in one of the several states. You must be born in the United States of America. And I assume you could be born in D.C. But my point is, you cannot be born in a foreign country, immigrate here, and then become president. We don't know. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I do find it interesting, though, that Trump, back in the early 2010s, was questioning Obama's birth certificate. Just saying, because that's the same thing. That's the same kind of strategy we see with Trump now. Something that is later proven to be true, that Trump says, he just asks the question, he brings it up in a public consciousness, and then it's proven later. Future proves past. So I think that there could be something to that. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But I find it interesting that that Trump asked about Obama's birth certificate way back when. And we know that there's more inconsistencies than a Swiss cheese in that supposed live birth or certificate of live birth or birth certificate, whatever it was, from the state of Hawaii. Now, I wanted to mention something of relevance in this matter about the Russia hoax. This is what it says from the Federalist. At one point, Obama asked whether there was any evidence of collaboration between the Trump campaign and Russia, but any response that may have been recorded in Brennan's notes, and that's John Brennan, is redacted. So, and we know separately, and I'm sourcing, and one of the, let me mention this, participants in the briefing, including those of former White House National Security Advisor Susan Rice, and that's obviously in the Obama administration, former White House Chief of Staff Dennis McDonald, and former DNI James Clapper, but those responses are redacted. Now, we know separately from Susan Rice, and I'm sourcing this courtesy of X22 report, we know that Susan Rice basically said that that they did not have evidence of collaboration between Trump and Russia, the Trump campaign in Russia. So this is very interesting. We just see the utter treason taking place with John Brennan, who's now former CIA director. Now, very interestingly, and I'm trying to keep this moving here because I realize now I understand this is a this is a lot to take in. So I'm trying to keep it moving here. But Greg Rubini at Greg Rubini on Twitter had this to say, and it's a thread here, and he talks about John Brennan and such in company. It's just a very interesting thread. Let me read this. Number one, thread. Brennan refused to be sworn on the Bible. When Brennan was CIA station chief in Saudi Arabia, he converted to Islam. Brennan was recruited by Saudi Arabia. And then he mentions, if you want to know who really is John Brennan, you can read this book. And he mentions about his book, Who is John Brennan, by Greg Rubini. So please go check that out if you want to. Now, number two, and you will know who founded ISIS and who created Al-Qaeda and gave them weapons and money. How Saudi Arabia blackmailed the U.S. with $750 billion. Brennan and Obama had a mind meld. The story behind John Brennan is much darker than you can imagine. Number three, why Gina Haspel is blocking D-Class. Haspel is deep state. Gina Haspel is protecting John Brennan and Obama. Now, let me stop right here and mention, just to clarify, she is, I believe, the current CIA director. Let me keep reading here. Haspel was CIA station chief in London in 2016 under Obama. It was Gina Haspel who managed the UK and Italy branch of the spy ops on Trump for Brennan and Obama. Number four, Gina Haspel knows personally Eric Ciaramella, the Adam Schiff whistleblower, quote-unquote whistleblower, of the Trump impeachment scam. Ciaramella is a CIA employee. Interesting. CIA employee. Number five, Eric Ciaramella is a Brennan boy. Like Brennan, also Eric Ciaramella is a communist and a Muslim and a friend of the Ayatollahs. I hope I'm pronouncing that just about right. Eric Ciaramella speaks Arabic and Russian. Number six was Gina Haspel, who issued the gag order on Eric Ciaramella name under Brennan and Adam Schiff request. And that's a question mark there. YouTube fake book. Interesting play on the word there. Instead of saying Facebook, he says fake book. Banned every post or video with that name. Chief Justice Roberts refused to read Senator Rand Paul question that had the Ciaramella name. Now, I remember that. And that brought it back to my mind. Ciaramella, Rand Paul had a question about Ciaramella. And John Roberts, who presided over the impeachment sham refused to honor that question. So Of course, of course, John Roberts is obviously deep state. And of course, just to clarify, again, he's the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. Let's be clear about that. Number 7. Excuse me. Let me keep reading here. Number 7. In my first book, The Spy Operations on Trump, there is an entire chapter on Gina Haspel, chapter 24. But that book has been suppressed by Amazon. You cannot buy it. Who ordered Amazon to suppress my book? Question mark. Gina Haspel, the British spy agency GCHQ? Question mark. John Brennan? Question mark. Now, number 8. By the way, a few days later, Amazon suppressed all my 4 books. The communist snowflakes at Amazon in Seattle do not want my books to be read. Wonder why? 3 of the 4 books have just been put back on sale yesterday, after 2 weeks of total ban. So, there's that. Interesting food for thought about John Brennan and Gina Haspel, especially in the context of General Flynn and the Russia hoax. Now, the Gateway Pundit has an interesting article from a few hours ago, and it reads, Sidney Powell warns another truth bomb dropping shortly in Flynn case. And she was on a Fox Business Network show. Liz McDonald asked her the question, we want to talk to you some more about what's going on with General Flynn's case. It seems to be in abeyance until after the election. It looks like that, right? Sidney Powell has this to say. Oh no, there will be another little truth bomb coming shortly. So, now I don't know if that was to reference the Russia, what Trump just did with the D-class. I don't really know. Now it could be that she was actually referencing something else having to do with more directly with General Flynn. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But I think that's very, very interesting. Now, Los Angeles was ordered to pay, I'm shifting gears here. Los Angeles was ordered to pay the National Rifle Association, NRA, 6 figures after losing First Amendment case. A federal court ordered, and I'm sourcing X22 reports, written report here. A federal court ordered Los Angeles to hand over more than $100,000 to the National Rifle Association after ruling that the city had violated the gun rights group's First Amendment rights. Federal District Court Judge Stephen Wilson struck down a city ordinance aimed at punishing prospective contractors with ties to the NRA as an infringement on the right to free speech and association. On Tuesday, he ordered city officials to pay for the Second Amendment group's attorney fees, which totaled nearly $150,000. Now, I'm running short on time, but let me just say, the deep state's on the run. They are on defense. Everything that they're saying Trump's guilty of, they're guilty of. They're guilty of treason, and they're guilty of trying to destroy our rights. And it's all falling apart on them rapidly. And I want you to be encouraged by that. Going back to Sidney Powell, let me mention this real quick. Her mentioning about the truth bomb, that should tell you there are going to be certain things happening before the election. The mass arrest indictments, that'll probably fall after the election because optics are very, very important. But I have a couple of Patriot Intelligence Insider posts to get to you in the short amount of time we have left together. Post number 4817 reads, this is from October 6th, and it says, January 15, 2020, number 1, USA-China Phase 1 deal executed, China bad day. Number 2, impeachment articles released by Pelosi, walked, delivered to Senate, attacked versus POTUS, coordinated plan for a specific day. Number 3, first C-19, that's coronavirus, case lands at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Attack versus POTUS, question mark. Mathematical probability, same day, natural versus controlled, question mark. Who benefits the most? Evil surrounds us. Now, I'm going to skip a little bit here. This is post number 4814. also from October 6th, and it reads, "Why are we being censored? Why are we being attacked daily? Why are we being condemned by Congress? 1984 thought crime? What happens when people are no longer allowed to think freely? What happens when people are no longer allowed to challenge their authority? What happens when people no longer fight back?" Now, post number 4813 has this to say, also from October 6th. "How close did we come to losing it? What if she," and I'm pretty sure that means Hillary, "got in? What if she got in? What if she got plus 3 Supreme Court justices? What if she got 300 plus judges? What if rogue elements remained plus added more within FBI, CIA, NSA, state, DNI, White House, IRS, DHS, ICE, WHO, CDC? What if our military remained financially starved? What if foreign backers continued to control America's policies? What if our borders remained open? What if China was given the keys? What if ... question mark. This is not about Republican versus Democrat." See, he's mentioning how close we came to losing this republic if the Hildebeest got into office. Now, this is a picture, a meme of Trump with all these media outlets coming against him. And it says, this is post 4812, 4812 from October 6th, and it says, "He gave up everything. He knew his life and the lives of his family would forever change. He knows the consequences. A man who had everything." Now, post number 4811, and let me say about Trump, that tells you he's the real deal. Okay, so enough with this BS about Trump somehow being, not really for the people. He is. Okay, and he's being used by God. He's being used by God. He's being protected by God. Post number 4811 from October 6th has a link to NBC News, and the headline was, "Facebook bans QAnon across its platforms." This is absolutely ridiculous. What these big tech outlets are trying to do. And the Patriot Intelligence Insider says, "Information warfare" in all caps. Could not agree more. That's exactly what this is, folks. This is not about stopping white supremacy, because that's not what QAnon is. It's never been about a cult or anything. It's been information source. It's an information source, and it will always be, always has been, always will be an information source. And they don't want the people to hear the truth of what the deep state's trying to destroy America. So that was a lot of information here. One other thing I forgot to put in this broadcast. We're gonna go to that right now. This is Biden at the debate, supposedly wearing a wire. I'll let you be the jury on whether that was a wire, because remember, Biden refused to have his ear inspected before the debate. So let's go to this clip right now and let's see what you think about it.
There it is. There it is. Biden's wearing a wire. Why do you need a wire, bro? We got a mic.
So that was Biden having something coming out of his jacket. You know, you tell me. They've tried to spin it, trying to say, oh, it was a crease in his shirt or whatever. If you ask me, it was a wire. I think it was a wire. And, you know, I think Joe Biden, he's getting help with his acuity, if you will. On the debate stage, he might be having someone feed information to him or telling him what to say or something like that. Who knows? We don't really know, but I just thought I'd mention that or include that. So, on that note, thank you for watching the Citizen Report. Just a quick note. I'm looking to add additional contributors to this broadcast. If you would like to be part of this broadcast, if you would like to help behind the scenes or anything in front or behind the camera, please let me know. I want more people. I want to make this broadcast a countrywide operation. I want to have citizens united doing this broadcast. And that's what this Citizen Report is all about. I want this broadcast to be something where this is not the mainstream media. I studied broadcasting. I have no idea if I'm going to ever work at a TV station now, but I'm just saying that for however long or short I'm doing this broadcast, I'm going to put my skills of broadcasting to work for this, because we have a country to save. This is one nation under God. The deep state's trying to destroy it, and we're not going to let that. I'm not going to let that happen on my watch, and neither should you. So go to our website, thecitizenreport.weebly.com. Click on the text alerts at the top of the page. Subscribe to my text alerts so I can let you know each time there's a new broadcast, and each time, or if we ever get censored, I can let you know that as well. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but that way we can keep some kind of line of communication open to get our broadcasts out still if the worst happens, because we know big tech is going to try to censor left and right. So on that note, thank you for watching the Citizen Report. I'm Jonathan Shannon. God bless each and every one of you. I will see you right back here again next time with the Citizen Report. Have a good night, everyone.